Hey module makers, I'm David, the creative director of Modulus. Welcome to Modulus Academy, where I give you my top tips for peak optimization. Today we're going to look at building efficiency. Last time we went more into detail about operator efficiency, and today we're looking at buildings. So for this example, let's start building the basic refinery blue pigment. So I'm gonna kind of go through the steps that you could take to make the building efficient. And by that I mean that the building is never waiting for modules or resources, and that all the modules you're making are perfectly consumed by the building. So step one, we take a look at the building's modules. So as you can see here, this building requires 3 different modules. That's easy. The next step is we kind of check the amounts they need. So the first module is needed 32 times and the 2 others 16 times. If we put a ratio to that, then we know that this module is required twice as much as the other ones. So if you make it even more simpler, if we use 2 cubes for this module and 1 for each of these, then we should have the perfect ratio of modules coming in, because each of these modules is 64 voxels, which is basically a full cube. So if we take 2 full cubes for this module, 1 full cube for this module, and 1 full cube for this module, we should have a perfect ratio to feed the building. So let's do that. Basically what it comes down to, and I'm not going to run over the production line itself because that's something I covered in the previous video. As you can see here, for module 1, I'm using 2 furnaces, which each produce 15 cubes per minute. So 30 effective cubes per minute are being used for module 1. For module 2 and 3, I'm also using 2 cubes, but I'm splitting it up later in the production line. So that means I'm effectively using 1 cube for module 2 and 1 cube for module 3. If we then take a look, we kind of skipped this this part here. I left it deliberately spacious so you could see what's happening real quick. But if we see the modules that I'm creating, is actually giving me the numbers I want. So I'm getting 30 per minute for the big boys over here, the black walls, and I'm getting 15 per minute for both the other ones. Now that's set up, we can start talking about construction of the building. Note that there are 2 phases. First, there's construction. That's when the building kind of builds up. And then when it's completed, it starts producing. And then we talk about it that the building is in the production phase. And we'll cover that in a bit. So 15, 15, 30. Now they need to go into the building, and we use cranes for that. So what's important to note is that a crane will always operate at 15 operations per minute. So we know that if we're making 30, we'll need 2 cranes. 15 will be 1 crane. So let's go ahead and hook that up. 2 cranes for module 1, 1 crane for module 2, and I'll put it here for now, 1 crane for module 3. So let me hook that up real quick. Module 1 goes in here. Well, that's kind of messy. I'm gonna do it different. I'm gonna do it like this, and like this, like that. So that module is coming in. Then the other one needs to come in, and let's tunnel this real quick, and just put the other one in the other crane. So I'm gonna delete this for a sec. I'm gonna place it again so I can show you something. Up, up, up. And now you can see that if all goes well, these modules will be picked up in the correct ratio. So what that essentially means is when, of course, now there's a little bit of a delay because we're kickstarting the building, as we so to speak. What's happening now is that when these modules are delivered for the 16th time, this one will be delivered for the 32nd time. So they will all be delivered the correct amount all at the same time. So the building is never waiting for another module. If I would have just made 15, 15, 15 per minute, the building would be just waiting for this module to be filled after these are already filled. So that's what I mean with crane ratios. You look at the modules, how many they are required, and then you make the kind of correct ratio for the cranes. So we've skipped the video a little bit. The building is now completely built. All the floors are built and it's at its max production level. So note that to get here, you also have to unlock stuff in the tech tree. But to explain this concept, it will help. So now what we're gonna do is talk about the production of the building. So the building has gotten all of its modules and it's ready to produce something. But now you can see some buildings will need an additional resource. In this case, the blue pigment refinery requires blue hexacrystals. And the same logic goes for this one as well. So you know that you have 2 cranes for this module and 1 for each of these, which means to match the production of the modules, we'll need 2 cranes for the blue hexacrystals as well. Note that you'll have to unlock more cranes in the tech tree first to actually get access to 6 cranes. But now we know that if these is 2 cranes are 30 per minute, we can put 2 cranes for the hexacrystals. So yeah, as you can see, I have reached my crane limit, so let me buy some extra cranes real quick. So now I have access to 6 cranes, which means I can feed in this additional resource to completely match and have a perfect ratio. So if it requires 8 for production, it's 2 cranes. So 2 cranes for the blue hexacrystals, 2 cranes for module 1, and 1 crane for module 2 and 3. So that brings me to a total of 6 cranes. So now I know that my production is balanced and all of my modules will always be consumed in the process. So let me put a harvester pad down and count how much blue pigment we're actually creating. I've let the game run for a little bit, and now you can see that no belts are clogging up. All the modules are perfectly consumed by the crane ratios, and this building is effectively producing 15 pigment per minute, which is a nice round number because all of the operators and buildings, everything in the games works with multiples of 15. So if you have new operators, you want your output to be a multiple of 15, of course. So that's it. It's a bit more complicated, but keeping these crane ratios in mind whenever you start a building could really help you keep track of your factory's production and come up with nice round numbers. That's a wrap for this episode of Modulus Academy. Make sure you're following us so you don't miss the next one. See you on the factory floor.